Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 9th out of 10 in our 2017 University Colloquium series, We Have Ag. The purpose of the series throughout the year has been to showcase our academic research and industry partnerships in agriculture, food, and natural resources. My name is Dr. Marilyn Wells, and I'm the Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs here at the university. And it's been tremendous fun to hear the wide variety of themes and topics and panelists throughout the year. As we're now, as I just mentioned, on the 9th of our 10 in the series, to date we've had over 35 panelists representing both our own faculty and staff at the university, ag leaders and experts from Minnesota and really around the world. We had a speaker from the Netherlands. In various sectors of agriculture, representing producers, processors, consumers, government agencies, nonprofits, citizens, a wide variety of individuals representing ag science, ag business, ag economy, ag communication. So we really had an opportunity to be exposed to a wide variety of ideas, opportunities, and challenges in agriculture, whether your knowledge is just beginning or more advanced in some of those topics. I also want to add that our Colloquium series today is being live streamed, as it has been for all of those, so we also have participants in this digital world who might be sitting in their kitchens or living rooms or classrooms or offices. And so as we get to the question and answer part, we ask that you use the microphone so that we can pick that up for the digital live streaming and so forth. Throughout all of our panels, we've had a wide variety of participants. We've had over 300 participants in the various panels. Depending upon the topic and the time today, we've tried to rotate them to suit many audience and schedules. We've had students, we've had faculty, we've had staff. Likewise, we've had ag community leaders and bakers and many people in the audience as well. Today, I'm particularly thrilled with our theme for our presentation, Young Professionals Shaping the Future of Agriculture. And so today we have 4 individuals who we've come to know through various avenues. Some are our alumni and some are not, but we love everyone, who are going to just be telling their story, their lives, maybe what they studied in college, and how they got to where they are today. As many of you know, at present, we do not have per se degree programs or majors that have agriculture in the title of them. We are in the midst of developing some of those. We've had a number of new ag-related courses come on board through business and anthropology and many other departments. But we know many of our students come to us from ag communities. They want to stay in Minnesota. They have a variety of passions and are seeking to find the way to connect what they're passionate about with how that might fit into the broad continuum of agriculture. So today we're going to hear from four of our young leaders shaping the future of agriculture, particularly here in Minnesota, though they have worldwide reach. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first panelist, Glenn Groth, and each of the panelists will tell their own story, so I won't be reading formal bios today because that's embedded into their presentations. Once each of our panelists has presented, we will have the rest of the time, the majority of time, for questions and answers and discussion. And across the series this year, we've never once ended early because there weren't enough questions or discussion. We will be having a reception afterwards in room 256 upstairs for those of you that wish to have deeper conversation or ask particular questions of one or more of our panelists. So let me turn it over to Glenn for our first presentation.
All right, good afternoon. Thanks for the university for having this series. Agriculture is important. Some of you might not be teaching or studying agriculture, but just drive a little bit outside of town. It's everywhere, and it touches each of our lives every single day. So the title, Young Professionals Shaping the Future of Agriculture. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got into it. Really the traditional way a lot of farm kids did. grew up on the farm, had that ag background, and there was me, I think about age 9 with my champion chickens from the Winona County Fair. That was kind of the spark of thinking that, I could maybe make a business out of this. I had sold chickens to a few of the little old ladies in the neighborhood who wanted to buy chickens from a little boy there. And from there, my 4-H career advanced, and I realized that, this is something I can maybe study, something that can maybe be a career choice beyond just, carpet farming with my little toy tractors on the floor. So after I got into high school, I became a member of FFA. National FFA organization was a big part of my development as a young leader, as a young agriculturalist. And it really through FFA is where I, really, farming was an interest. Farming was an interest, and through 4-H it kind of sparked the interest. Through FFA, I really began to develop the reality that, it's something that a guy can actually study. There's colleges that teach agriculture. I didn't really know that until I got into FFA. And I could go for 4 years to study it. I don't have to just do what my dad did. My dad, he worked on the farm, he farmed, but he also had a job in town with my grandparents, who were the main farmers in the family. So I was involved in FFA. And eventually that led me to the University of Wisconsin River Falls, just a little ways from here, where I got my degree in dairy science, and agronomy was my minor. So, and shortly after I got done out of college, that's when I kind of continued on to my farming career. On the left, you'll see what our farm how it kind of looked in 2005 when I got out of college. The other picture was taken just a few years ago after we had added on to the facilities. So we just had a handful of cows growing up. We about doubled our dairy herd, and built more facilities to house them in a way to easier feed, better able to handle them for animal health needs, and better able to manage nutrients and manure that comes off the facility. I mean, the old way of doing things, you had your cement lot, you had good heavy rain, you no longer have manure on the farm, so you felt pretty good about yourself. That doesn't cut it these days. We have to do a better job of managing the water around us, our land and our neighborhood, so we have everything under a cover now, so we can collect all the manure. That was kind of the dairy portion of our farm. At the same time, I knew that I couldn't just make a living off 50, 60 cows. I had to come up with another source of income. So I started asking neighbors about renting their farms, and seeing if they would let me plant some corn at their place. And little by little, and small field here, small field there, we went from about 200 acres when I started, and my wife and I farm about 1,000 acres of crops now. My wife also, she didn't go to school for agriculture, but she came into agriculture later on after a career at Mayo Clinic. She had the opportunity to farm with her family, so when we got married, we combined some of the acres we had together to end up with the total where we're at now. We have 2 little girls at home, 3rd one's on the way, and we're real excited to share agriculture with them. To kind of expand on that point and provide a little context for what we're talking about today here, the topic is young professionals shaping future agriculture. I think it's important to elaborate on what's young professionals and how they're shaping the future agriculture. But right now, I kind of look at it, we have 2 camps in agriculture when we talk about young farmers. You got the traditional multi-generational farmers, kind of similar to me, had a farm, had land growing up, had that agricultural background. Those people are typically growing your commodity crops, feeding pigs, growing corn and soybeans, nothing too exciting, but that's what they grew up with, that's what makes them tick, that's what they want to do every day. Those people traditionally, like me, had the traditional ag background, the 4-H, the FFA, the livestock showing, going to an agriculture college, 4 years, 2 years, or working in agribusiness for a couple of years. But oftentimes these days when we talk about young and new and beginning farmers, we see a lot of the story revolving around these new farmers, as I like to call them for lack of better terms, who didn't maybe start out with a land or with a family background in agriculture, perhaps came into it later in life, in a way of affecting, reflecting their own personal beliefs about the environment and social justice, and they want to, use that as their platform for creating a better world, and that's honorable and good. Those people are oftentimes more involved with direct marketing, specialty crops, and they oftentimes got their agriculture interest or background through non-traditional means. The internships, apprenticeships, often through many different organizations, or just non-traditional ag education. There's several liberal arts colleges that maybe 30 years ago, 20 years ago, didn't have any interest or any educational offerings in agriculture, but now have some agricultural background. But long story short, there's one takeaway I want you guys to take away from my part of the presentation, that there's no easy way to start farming. To those people that are getting into the new to agriculture, they may be jealous of the people like me who've been in agriculture and have maybe some of the resources. However, people like me are jealous of those young farmers who are having the freedom, and you know, they don't have high expectations of them. So just a little bit about some of the challenges facing some of the new farmers. Oftentimes it revolves around the lack of equity. But if you have equity in your farm, meaning you have something to borrow against, you have somebody backing up your operation, you can get that access to land, and you can get access to credit. You know, if you have access to credit, you can get access to land. Access to credit leads access to machinery and the financing you need for putting in that crop. Oftentimes you hear some of these newer farmers, new to agriculture, they lack access to health care. If you're an independent farmer, you know, you're kind of stuck on the MinCare exchange. You know, if that's your only option, really. You should part of a multi-generational family farm. Sometimes you can have employee coverage through the farm. And oftentimes isolation is brought up as a challenge here. You know, the traditional farmers going into an established farm business, they face their set of challenges too. Oftentimes it revolves around family dynamics. You hear over and over again. I know several young people my age. I'm 35, and I graduated college about 13 years ago, but in that 13 years, I know several people who went back to their family farm, very successful, very traditional family farms, but they walked away from it. They couldn't handle dealing with family, and that's an issue that needs to be addressed. And hear that talked about a lot of things. So I mean, sometimes there's unrealistic expectations that, yeah, we're expecting Junior here to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day for $9 an hour, and that should be good enough for him, because gosh darn, that was good enough for me back in the 40s. So that's not realistic. You have generational differences. You know, son wants to go to rock concerts in the cities. Well, back in our day, we just went down to the ballroom, we danced the polka. Well, that was good enough for me. Why isn't it good enough for my son there? You hear that conflict every now and again. And just personality conflicts. You got two sister-in-laws. I've heard, though, that dynamic tearing apart a farm. You and your cousin have different ideas of which direction the farm should go. You're both equal partners in it. Your cousin thinks he wants to go full steam ahead, expanding, growing the farm. You're looking at the balance sheet saying, hold on a second, this isn't a good idea. So you have those conflicts within the family, no real way to deal with them. Beyond that, you know, often your young farmers come back to the farm. Yeah, it's maybe dad says, here you go, have at it, but they have outdated facilities, outdated equipment that aren't up to snuff, maybe aren't good from an environmental standpoint or an animal care standpoint, need to be updated. You know, you have those facilities, but they're just not going to cut the mustard. You're not going to be able to be competitive and stable and sustainable long term. And beyond that, regulatory pressure affects a lot of young farmers too. Yeah, so you have that outdated hog barn, you want to build a new one, but regulations in the county that maybe have been adopted since you grew your farm sometimes make that hard to do or impossible. And finally, just social pressure, because when you come back to a multi-generational family farm, all eyes are on you to see if you're the generation that screws it up and blows it. If you're coming in agriculture with no expectations, they'll expect you to fail. So if you do great, then you're lauded, you're placed on a pedestal. If you fail, no one really notices. However, you come from a large family farm that has been successful over many generations, and you're the one to sink the ship, that you carry that burden with you for a long, long time. No one wants to be that one. So, long story short, that's my kind of context provided to the conversation here, and I'll hand it over to the next presenter.
Thank you, Glenn. We also appreciate your sense of humor and making it real, which is what these conversations about. Before I introduce our next panelists, I'll take the opportunity to put a plug in. Our 10th in the series, 10 this year, will be on Monday, October 23rd from 11:30 to 1, Hot Topics in Food, Agriculture, and the Environment. And one of the topics we will have several panelists speaking about is about the issue of health care. One of our panelists is one of our own faculty, Dr. Paul Mackey, who has previously served as president of the National Rural Mental Health Association and was invited by Senator Tina Smith to be on the agricultural work group as they're preparing for the next farm bill. We're also going to have a panelist talking about the opioid epidemic in rural farms as well as trade. And we're all aware of the changes in international trade going on right now. So those are just some of the challenges you talked about will be hot topics that we'll be addressing in our future, our last panel. Our next panelist, Gabriel Adele, came to know Gabriel as a university as we're growing more into agriculture, pun intended. Think about that, growing more into agriculture, okay. The Council of Deans went to visit Farm America. And when we were visiting Farm America and seeing what relationships there might be between the university and Farm America, what could we do that would be mutually beneficial to one another, at that time Gabriel was the project coordinator, project manager there, is one of our alumni. And since then she's moved on to another position, but is looking to be one of the new farmers. And so we'll hear from Gabriel next. So.
Thank you, Marilyn, and good afternoon, everyone. Like Marilyn introduced me, my name is Gabrielle Edel. I currently work for Partners for Affordable Housing here in Mankato, and I'll talk a little bit about how in my path through college and my personal passions have brought me to that position. I am not like the rest of the panelists. I didn't grow up on a farm. I grew up in town. That I had all cousin farmers. Unfortunately, some of the struggles that Glenn touched on were for my parents. My dad dreams nothing more than to have a farm, but unfortunately, because of several different reasons, couldn't do that. I grew up in both FFA and 4-H. Particularly like 4-H, and stuck with that alongside with playing sports and doing several other extracurricular activities growing up. 4-H, I really fell in love with it in my high school years. I predominantly showed beef cattle locally, state level, and nationally, and I absolutely loved that aspect, and that's when my love for agriculture started to grow. As I recognized that as a personal strength of mine, I got a job at a local dairy farm, which happens to be Caitlin Keck, which you'll hear from her a little bit later, her family farm. I fell in love with that right away. I started there when I was 17 years old, and I continue to work there when I can. Now that I'm graduated, I can't get as home as much as I would like to, but that is where my love for dairy really grew. If I could do anything, it would be to dairy farm. And like Glenn also touched on, starting a farm nearly is impossible, especially a dairy farm, for someone that isn't born into it. And so my passion grew into dairy steers, which is where my beef cattle comes from, and my passion for the dairy industry as well. I recognize that I did go to school here, and unfortunately not having the opportunity to go to River Falls or other schools that I would have liked to pursue an ag degree. I had a full ride scholarship here. I couldn't turn down that money to go to a different school, so I do have intentions to go back for a master's degree for an agriculture related field, but I got my degree in something that I thought I could use in the ag field. And so I got my degree in RPLS, Recreation, Parks, and Leisure Services, predominantly in leisure service planning and management. I double majored while I was here. I got my other degree in nonprofit management. Nonprofits have something that I've always been interested in. And so I finished my practicum and my degree at Farm America in Waseca, which is an agriculture interpretive center. I taught education programs to kids of all ages on very many topics in the agriculture industry, but predominantly talked a lot about the dairy science, dairy evolution, milking evolution, and we had school tours and stuff like that, and I absolutely loved that position. I was able to use my degree for both nonprofit and program planning, and my love for agriculture all came together. Unfortunately, that nonprofit has taken some changes, and that included the cutting and the funding of my position. And so I had to kind of move on elsewhere. For someone without an agriculture degree or background, I found it really hard to stay in the agriculture world, and I found myself really heartbroken and torn on where I would go next. I find myself now working for Partners for Affordable Housing. It's located here in Mankato, and I find myself blessed. I never thought I'd be working in the human services world, but I absolutely love it. I work with homeless children, ages from infant to 18. I'm a child aide, and I work with them on the barriers that come with being homeless for young children. Currently, 1 in 4 people in Blue Earth County are homeless, and so the need is there. When I lived here for my 4 years of my undergrad, I didn't realize the need. So I guess I found a new passion that I really had no idea about. So I've been working there since the start of October, and I absolutely love it. I don't see myself changing career paths at all. And so what I've done to bring my passion of agriculture back into my life is I get home to work on the dairy farm as much as I can. I joined the local American Dairy Association board. I'm program planning with them using my skills that I got here to plan local events to create awareness in the community. I'm from Steele County, so we do a bunch of different programs, breakfast on the farm, local farm tours, speaking at daycare, stuff like that, doing activities with kids to grow their knowledge of agriculture and exactly where that food comes from and the process from the farm to the table. So I do that in the local community, and then me and my fiance are those first-time farmers that Glenn kind of talked about, the new age farmer. We're both first-generation farmers. He comes from a hog farm, but it's not generational and no opportunity to grow for him. And so in the last year, we have purchased a 30-acre farm, which is kind of unheard of for people our age. That's been a huge investment for both of us. It took all of my savings and most of his to take kind of a risk to do this. We looked at hundreds of farms, the location, building space, what we wanted to eventually grow it into. We have a 5-year plan of what our goals are, and that agriculture piece is coming first for us versus having kids or doing renovations to the house that we really want, or building anew. So we have bought a 100-year-old farmhouse, doing small renovations to make it livable, and eventually going to upgrade the pasture to raise beef cattle. And so I'm really excited. I have taken the steps. I'm also in the American Simmental Association, which is a breed of cattle, and so I work with those people in that association, so they can help me market my brand. And so my next 5-year plan is to brand a market for dairy steers, so I can become a producer, sell. I want to get certified in artificial insemination and grow that farm to something that I want and that I can pass along to my children. I'm particularly excited to be here, being a MSU alum. I recognize that this campus needs talk about agriculture. I was super disappointed in my 4-year degree that I was not able to get anywhere close to an agriculture degree or a degree that I could use in the future. And unfortunately, I really wanted that full ride scholarship, and so I just wish more opportunities were given to me here on campus. So I'm really excited for the conversation that started. I think that's why I'm here today and why I think it's most important to get that conversation rolling. I lived on campus all 4 years as a resident assistant, so I saw and mentored many people through my career here, and I can tell you that the piece of agriculture is missing from this campus, and I would love to see it brought back. And so that is a little bit about me. Thank you.
When I introduced her, we came to meet through our visit to Farmerica, and at that point in time, early in the fall, we were still trying to formulate the themes for our panel discussions throughout the year, and Gabrielle was very helpful in shaping the theme for this particular panel about the young professionals shaping the future of agriculture. And if you aren't aware, the university is celebrating our sesquicentennial, which has been a great opportunity for us to say, 150 years ago, we were founded to serve the pressing needs of the region, which at that time were to produce teachers for the new territory of Minnesota. And we remain true to our mission today of serving the region. And through our academic master planning process and many other conversations, is now one of our areas of emerging distinction that we're looking at is agriculture, food, and natural resources. And we're developing new courses new programs, new internship opportunities, and so forth. And certainly, each of these individuals will be a part of that. Connected a little bit to Gabrielle's presentation, one of the panelists that I particularly enjoyed and been very grateful for all of our panelists was Gracia Johnson, who spoke on when we had New Farms for New Americans, and she was talking about her work with the Agricultural Worker Project and the different types of new Americans, immigrants, migrants, and their housing issues and so forth, which intersect with some of the work that Gabrielle is doing. So, Gabrielle mentioned Caitlin Keck, so let me bring Caitlin Keck forward to tell your story, and then we'll move on to Anna.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for this panel discussion today. I'm really excited that MSU is bringing agriculture to campus. You know, I had never considered MSU as a school when I was looking at college because I knew at that time when I was a senior I wanted to major in something agriculture related. So really happy to hear that you're bringing ag to campus and that I can now tell other local high schoolers to check you guys out as an option. I grew up on a dairy farm, and so I've been involved in agriculture my whole life. The farm is located south of Owatonna, and growing up on a dairy farm, I kind of took the opportunity to be involved in agriculture for granted. I had no idea that there were so many people when I was growing up. I didn't realize it until high school that did not have the opportunities that I had. One of the opportunities I really enjoyed growing up was being involved in 4-H, and the other two panelists that have already talked about their involvement in youth organizations. So 4-H was an excellent way for me to not only practice some important skills related to agriculture and farming, but also to meet other people and expand my network. And you know, having taken growing up on a dairy farm for granted, until I did not have an interest in working in agriculture until I was a sophomore in high school. So it took me a long time to consider agriculture as a future for me, especially having grown up in it. I preferred not to do chores. That was just not it was not my passion. I have an older brother that Gabby has worked with a lot, and he was the one who we knew was going to take over the farm, and we knew this when he was 5 years old. He always had a passion for dairy cattle and milking the cows and breeding and feeding and everything that went along with it. I mean, he does most of the veterinary work on our family farm, and so he's always had a passion for it. So kind of knowing that, I knew that I wouldn't be involved in the family farm. So what else was I going to do? And so I met some friends in high school. So my 9th grade year, when we signed up for the kind of fun classes, my brother strongly encouraged me to take like ag mechanics and intro to agriculture, and I was like, no, I'm not going to be a farmer. Why do I need to take those classes? And so I took interior design, fashion merchandising, and architecture design my freshman year of high school. And after I took those classes and I met more people in high school, I became friends with some other kids who were involved in FFA. And my brother was in FFA too, and I didn't want to do that. And so I became friends with them. They convinced me to try out dairy judging in 4-H. And this was really scary for me. So you had to judge classes of 4 cows or heifers, which are young female cows, and give a set of reasons. So speak about them in front of a judge without any notes for about 2 minutes. And I did not even know the parts of a cow at that point in my life. So here I am, a sophomore, going to dairy judging classes on the weekends during the summer for fun, and I was learning the parts of a cow with 5 to 10-year-olds. And I was humiliated at the time because I didn't know much about what I was doing. But eventually I learned that I was pretty good at speaking about the cattle and what I saw once I've learned the basics. So dairy judging through 4-H brought me to FFA. My friend said, well, you're pretty good at this dairy judging thing in 4-H. You should join our FFA team. You need a fourth person on our team. So I did that, and then I signed up for that Intro to Ag class that I resisted the year before, and learned a lot about careers in agriculture, and I'm so thankful for that, because no matter how much my parents tried to tell me, there's other things aside from farming, sometimes you need to hear those things from other folks and professionals in the industry. And so I'm really glad I had the opportunity to do that. And FFA provides so many leadership opportunities as well, and I appreciated that aspect of the organization. I eventually served my chapter as an officer, the region as an officer, and went on to be a Minnesota State FFA officer. And growing that network of people in agriculture is what brought me to my career today. After high school, I went to the University of Minnesota in the Twin Cities, majored in agricultural education, and minored in animal science and Spanish. By the time I was a senior, I'd already taken 6 years of Spanish, and I didn't want to lose that, and figured, why not? And then graduated from the U, and I had done a few internships during college, one in sales, and the other and it was pharmaceutical sales. And so I traveled to dairy farms throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and South Dakota, selling pharmaceuticals for a summer. And then I interned in the seed industry in a marketing role and fell in love with that. I really realized that my passion for speaking and leadership fit really well into the marketing and communications realm. So I went on to work for a seed company called Pioneers. You may have heard of them. My first job with Pioneer took me to Nebraska. And I stepped out of my comfort zone a lot there. They started me in a training program in agronomy, and I hear that MSU is thinking about an agronomy degree in the future, which is basically crop and soil science. And I didn't know much about agronomy at the time, but I had a really good team that mentored me and helped me learn. And after a year there, found a position in marketing at Pioneer's headquarters in Johnston, Iowa. So my husband and I got married during that time, and we moved to Iowa. I was there for 3 years. My job with Pioneer brought me back to actually the Mankato area. So Pioneer used to have a regional office located here in Mankato. So we moved, my husband and I moved back to our hometown in Owatonna, and I commuted to Mankato. And then changes in the agriculture industry, if you're aware of the Pioneer or DuPont merged with Dow. So they made a whole bunch of structural changes and ended up eliminating the location here in Mankato after I moved here 10 months earlier. So that was a tough transition for me. But I found a position that I really love in the equipment industry. Again, never thought I'd transition from dairy to seed to equipment, but that's where I am today. I work for a local equipment manufacturer based in Faribault, Minnesota. Our company is called Environmental Tillage Systems, and we manufacture and sell Soil Warrior strip tillage equipment throughout mostly the United States and Canada. And we do have some equipment overseas as well in Australia and New Zealand, and one that is going to run for the first time in Zimbabwe in a few weeks. So what's unique about, and I should jump back to expand on my education. I knew that I wanted to pursue a grad degree at some point in time. So while I was at Pioneer, they had a nice program for tuition reimbursement. So I figured now's the time to get back to school. And I pursued, the Purdue University has a dual degree program called the MS MBA in Food and Agribusiness Management. So that was a 2.5-year program while I was working full-time that allowed me to get a Master's of Science in Ag Economics and an MBA. So I'm really thankful for that opportunity too. And again, just another really great opportunity to not only gain that education, but meet people from all over the country in agriculture that we stay very close in contact with today. My husband and I still get together with a group of them every year. The company I work for, I'll tell you a little bit more about. So I'm not currently farming. Oh, I should. I have a little hobby, which is growing produce. In the summer, I grow produce and I sell some of it directly, but the majority of it to the Hy-Vee store in Waseca. So that's my little piece of farming, and I hate to call myself a farmer because I know how much time and equipment and land and just resources it takes to be a farmer like my parents and brother are today. So I don't use any equipment. All of it's done on my own, and it's just, I love growing things and producing things and selling them so that people can enjoy them. So maybe someday I'll turn that into a larger business. I love growing produce. So the company I work for has been in existence since 2004. We're the leading manufacturer of conservation tillage and nutrient management equipment. We focus solely on that. Other equipment companies that have the strip tillage product line, that's not their main focus typically. And our equipment is designed to enhance soil productivity and farm profitability. So strip tillage, what is it? So if you've driven out in the country this spring when it's not snow covered, you might notice that some of the fields are completely black. We would call that conventional tillage after they harvested their corn or soybeans in the fall. Those farmers went across it with a disc or ripper and turned the entire surface soil black. And there are many good reasons for doing that. One is to help break down all that residue left over from the crop, and others are to incorporate nutrients or in the spring to warm up the soil when they do that tillage. So strip tillage is not a relatively new, but GPS and technology has allowed it to be more successful today. So it's a practice where farmers can use this machine and it only tills up the row in which they plant. And so it tills that narrow row, and they're able to variable rate apply fertilizer into that zone or strip at the same time. And so it prepares the seed bed so they can plant a new crop in the spring, allows it to warm and dry more quickly. And then the rest of the field, the reason for doing it, aside from placing the fertilizer and making sure they get it on at the rate and time that they need to, is protecting the soil with that residue left between the strips. That helps prevent water and wind erosion. So some benefits of strip tillage you can see up there. I named a few. One that our customers refer to a lot is reduced fuel usage and labor requirements. So farm labor is a really tough issue for farmers today. They have a hard time finding skilled people that are willing to work on a farm. And so our equipment allows them to use less labor. And then a benefit of reducing that erosion and getting nutrients placed where they should be is improved water quality. So that is a little bit about me, and I look forward to hearing from Anna and then hearing the questions you guys have.
Thank you. Just springboarding off of some of the themes of her presentation, I'll take this opportunity to put a plug in. Next Thursday night, April the 19th, from 7 to 9 p.m., we're going to have another ag event that's not a part of our Colloquium series. We have many things going on at the university, but we have the Star Tribune food industry reporter who's going to be doing a presentation on the future of food on April the 19th from 7 to 9 p.m., and that's going to be in our Trafton Science Center. And I know we have some of our faculty from that college here. There was a press release that went out about that today, so we can tell you more about that afterwards. So, moving on to our finalist panel today, before we open it up for questions and discussions, is Anna Compart, who's a credit officer at Compeer Financial. So, Anna.
So like Marilyn said, my name is Anna Conhart. I am a wife, I am a mom, I'm a farmer, and I'm a credit analyst. So I wear a lot of hats in life right now. And like most of our panelists, I grew up on a farm down by Worthington. I grew up on a hog and a crop farm. I grew up in a little bit different farm operation because my parents are 20 years apart in age. So my dad was 50 when I was born. And so in the mid-90s, the hog industry really struggled. And we decided that getting out of the farming operation was going to be the best choice at that point in time. And knowing that my brother was like 10 at that point, we didn't have somebody that was going to fill the gap age-wise. So that left this farming operation that I grew up kind of as a kid having a farm operation, and then it disappeared, which is one of the challenges that Glenn kind of alluded to is generational. So we had a missing gap of a generation in our farming operation. So I grew up on a farm for a while, and that kind of turned more into a hobby operation, but that my passion for agriculture never left. So I was always involved in 4-H and FFA, and that was something that excited me, but I was always a little bit scared of the pigs when we did have them. So as you just remember that thing, I was always scared of pigs and did not like them. So in high school, farming never even crossed my mind as something that I wanted to do. As I grew older, I thought maybe I'd marry a farmer, but that I wouldn't really be involved in the operation, and that I would have my own career. In high school, I did take ag courses, and I specifically remember one time that I must have been a junior, and I had the opportunity to go to the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and go tour their facilities because I thought I wanted to be a forensic scientist. This is when it was like CSI was really like just starting to get going, so I was like on the bandwagon of I'm going to be a crime scene tech. And that day was also FFA officer interviews. And my FFA advisor said, well, if you go to that, you can't interview. And so I made the decision and said, okay, I'm just going to leave FFA behind, and I'm like, this is what I think my passion is, and this is what I'm going to go and do. But later on, my FFA advisor, when he had asked me, Anna, where are you applying to school? I said, I'm applying to Augustana in Sioux Falls, and I'm going to major in chemistry or biochem because this is what I want to do. And he said, you know what, Anna, I think you really should apply for more than one college. Well, okay, whatever. Like, I'll apply one more place because I literally only had applied to one place. And he said, well, you know, FFA state convention is coming up. Let's go up there. Just tour the campus while you're up there. You've been there before. And that fueled my passion, once again, for agriculture, seeing everybody at the St. Paul campus, getting back into my agricultural roots. So I did apply to U of M, and I ended up going to the University of Minnesota. I started out as a food science major because I really liked that chemistry background until I actually had to take the classes, and then I realized I'm not smart enough for this because there's a lot of chemistry and math. And so I switched my major, and I had a degree in agricultural industries and marketing with an emphasis in animal science. And I was telling them earlier, it's kind of like an applied econ degree with a minor in animal science. So I went to the University of Minnesota, I graduated with that degree, and I was looking for jobs, and I said, I have no idea what I want to do. I didn't understand careers that were out there in agriculture. I was very blinded to the areas that were touched by agriculture. At the time, I had a lot of friends who had interned with a company called AgStar Financial Services, and they said it was a great place to work. So I'm like, oh, great place to work, I'm going to try to apply there. I applied for multiple internships, multiple positions, and I got to know the HR person really well, and she got to know me really well. And so she eventually keyed me into a job in an associate position, which was like this brilliant thing, because an associate position with them was a training program. You got to decide if you liked the career, they got to decide if they liked you, and they were willing to train me in an area that I knew nothing about. When I was, just after I had graduated and before I had, after I had accepted my job, I was traveling to the Twin Cities, and my like 96 red Grand Prix died on the side of the road in the middle of winter. I had to get a new vehicle, and so I went and talked to a banker, and he's like, do you have a job? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be a credit analyst. He's like, do you know what that means? I said, I have no idea what that means. He goes, do you know what a credit bureau is? Never heard of a credit bureau. He goes, well, let's walk through this, because this is what you're going to be doing. This is the career that you just chose. Okay. So a training program was an amazing opportunity for me to learn, and thankfully I found right out of the bat that a passion, a job that I had a passion for. So that's a little bit of where I got to in terms of my education, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the farming side. So along with this, while I was in college, I met this man of my dreams, and eventually we got married, and so today we have 2 kids, and we have moved to the family farm. We moved there in 2016, so we've been there just over 2 years now, and this is the 3rd generation farming operation. My husband's the 3rd generation, well, he's really the 4th generation on the farm, but we're the 3rd generation in the current operation. And he farms with his dad and 2 of his uncles, so multi-generational. There's 4 families in this farm, and we all live within 2 miles of each other, which is pretty common in agriculture for us to live very close to each other, so we get a lot of family time, like Glenn was talking. And I live 30 feet from my husband's grandmother, which is a blessing in disguise. She will text me and say, I've got supper for you on the church pew, and she knows I've had a long day at work. So our operation is a cash grain operation. We've got, we raise corn and soybeans. We're also a seed stock producer, which was a really big operation for us 15, 20 years ago. So we had breeding stock sales that we would sell our boars and gilts, and then we had, when artificial insemination became a big thing, we started selling semen. And then we always have had the farrow finish operation, and we also do some hog exports. And when we started bringing more generations into our family farm, we said we need more revenue sources because we can't support 4 families off of the existing operation. And with just how the industry changed, we needed to make some changes. So we also have a branded meat program. So we have Compart Family Farms Premium Duroc line. And for 2018, my husband and I, along with his cousin and his wife, we will be farming our first 40 acres on our own. So this is very exciting, but 40 acres is, just a little part of it all. I also want to talk about my role at AgStar. So I alluded to that I was with AgStar. It's now called Compeer Financial. We recently went through a merger. And Compeer is part of the farm credit system. And I said that I was a credit analyst, and this is what I do all day. Up on the screen are just numbers and ratios. I look at numbers, I analyze loan requests. I've been there for 9 years, so I started there. They trained me, I decided I loved it. And they put a lot into me, and I'm trying to give a lot back to them. So my job is to underwrite loan requests. I work exclusively with farmers because we are part of the farm credit system. We have to be eligible for a loan with us, you have to be a farmer. But I don't just get to underwrite loan requests. I get out on the farm, and I get to do financial counseling with clients. I get to be involved with different education events. Through work, I've been Andy's project facilitator. So just opportunities for me to educate the clients that I work with and farmers. I've also had the opportunity to work with Minnesota Ag in the Classroom on our foundation board of directors. And so my reach is not just the clients that I work with, but I want to reach out into and bring ag literacy, starting at a young age and through high school and even into the college setting. And at my work, we're here talking about careers. I just want to make it known that we have a lot of MSU alumni that work for us at Compeer. We have a variety of degrees that work for a variety of people with degrees. So whether it's education, we have people with HR, finance is a huge one for us, economics, business degrees, and so on. So I'm very excited to hear the questions that we have. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. I think one thing that you could hear across all of our panelists is their passion for what they do and how they connected their passions to where they are today and what that journey was like. So with that, let's go ahead and open it up for questions. And I won't say, do you have questions, but what questions do you have?
Not all at once here, it's all right.
introduce yourself so the rest of the audience and our panelists have a perspective as well.
I'm Jeff Purble from the Department of Chemistry and Geology, and I married a farmer. My wife grew up on a dairy farm, and her dad told her never to marry a farmer because of the time commitment. It was a dairy farm in Wisconsin. I grew up in the city of Owatonna. So some connections there, and I'm a Boilermaker. So way too many connections there. But what I wanted each one of you, there was one theme in there that I didn't expect, and I would not have known until I married the farmer, and that was 4-H. And I live in Mankato. My 2 sons are both involved in 4-H, but we're in the city. And I think a lot of people think 4-H is only for the farm kids or FFA. Can you talk a little bit more about what 4-H is and how it has actually evolved over the years?
I can speak to that one. I was that kid. All my cousins did make fun of me growing up in town, telling me I wasn't really in 4-H because I lived in town. So, it's okay, I'm back. Okay, I can really speak to that, but I think it has done a really amazing job at evolving over the years. You don't only have to show animals. There's many other categories you can bring. There's art, food, culinary arts. You can grow vegetables, and there's really across the board for anybody. I know, and I'm from the Owatonna community. Growing up as it has evolved over years, it was really kind of a mentorship program, a way to build community if you were looking for something for peers to get involved. You play softball. I grew up playing 4-H softball with several different friends, and that had nothing to do with farm. That was just a sport, giving kids a sense of community. And so I think it's really evolved over the years. I know when I was a program planner at Farm America, I specifically worked on a program out there of giving kids a sense of agriculture through showing. So the requirements were you had to live in town, and then I worked with farmers who would lease their animals to these kids, and I ran a program that would teach them how to show. Much like both Caitlin's parents and the farm that I leased animals from have showed me how to take care of animals, how to show animals. I did that in a program, and so I recognized that outreach, and so when I was a program planner, I worked specifically hard to give kids with disabilities, kids that lived in town, kids with different barriers that didn't have access to agriculture, kind of a sense of agriculture. There's also a really neat program through Owatonna Community Education called the Colloquium program that has really sparked the community of Owatonna and gives kids a chance to raise an animal from when it was just, a novice is what we call it, but a little baby calf all the way up into a full-grown heifer or bred heifer. And they're able to show that through several years through this program, and that has built up the community. And that's not a 4-H program, it's a community education program that really has brought agriculture to many kids in the Owatonna community. And so I think that's really amazing. I don't know much about the Mankato community. I'm still learning through my current job, but I anticipate that 4-H is much like it is now. The evolution of it has been something really great.
Other panelists to speak about, to respond to the question about 4-H?
One other aspect of 4-H that I want to mention is, so when a kid joins 4-H, you're part of a club. So you kind of have your own community, and I think now maybe a handful of kids in each club would truly be from a traditional agriculture or farming background. Most of them are not now, and they're seeking opportunities to get involved in animal agriculture or other aspects of agriculture, and sometimes they can do that by raising poultry or rabbits or something. But another aspect of 4-H that really has benefited me my entire life, and especially in my career, is learning how to run effective meetings. So I can definitely tell that not all of my colleagues have been through 4-H and FFA like I have, because they didn't have a chance to get those skills when they were at a young age, to learn those skills and practice them in a setting that, we're planning a social outing or something, in a fun and kind of learning setting. And those skills are essential when you are working in business. And so I'm glad I've been able to bring that to my career, is just those skills of effective meeting management and, you know, the simple basics of setting an agenda, making sure everybody gets a turn to speak, taking notes, and creating those action items when you're done, and then revisiting those things at the next meeting.
Thank you. That's, I grew up many years in Girl Scouts where we learned many similar kinds of things. And in our community, you were in Girl Scouts or 4-H. But a question for us to consider is, how as a university can we be more involved in supporting 4-H, and how can the 4-H programs tap the resources and the talent and expertise of the university? So. Glenn, did you want to speak to that as well?
Yeah, going off your question and your original one there too. You know, the primary reason my wife and I have kids, or having kids, to have kids in 4-H, that's no lie. But I think the 4-H experience is different for every single kid. If you're from a rural town in southern Minnesota, it could be 100% animals, livestock, agriculture, but 4-H is huge in urban and metro areas too. For those kids, though, that 4-H experience is very different. I think 4-H focuses on youth development. Whatever that kid's passion may be, 4-H enhances and develops that. So if you're from a farm town like a lot of us were, you know, agriculture develops your passion and interest in agriculture. From an urban area, have an interest in, you know, sciences, you know, geology, all those things, all the sciences, and basically being a citizen of the world, engaging in politics, you know, 4-H to develop those interests too. And how the university gets involved is being present, because you know, the 4-H is administered and done through the University of Minnesota Extension System, and use the resources of the extension system to carry out those programs. You know, that's one place where the resources here in the Minnesota system at Minnesota State Mankato right here, I mean, you get all these experts and really good people involved. You know, first step is volunteer to host that science camp for 4-H kids. You know, host maybe a judging contest for FFA kids to let them know that you have the experts here, you're willing to go out of your way. Because right now, I mean, trying to stray too far from the subject here, you know, the University of Minnesota holds these competitive events for FFA kids. University of Wisconsin River Falls, where I went to, host competitive FFA events for kids from Minnesota. South Central College does, South Dakota State does, North Dakota State does. They all do those things for Minnesota FFA kids. That's one area where I think the university here can step up and look at what resources you have to offer to host some of those events, get kids thinking about agricultural, you know, education path here at the university.
Thank you.
And I think based on the original question too, I think, so I live in just north of Nicollet, so Nicollet County, but I work here in the Mankato area. 4-H, I would say in Mankato is a little bit different, because I think 4-H has done a really good job in the metro area of promoting, like, hey, it's not just for farm kids. They do that better because it's very saturated metro. Mankato is somewhat metro, right? But we're also very rural. And my personal opinion is that we haven't done a great job in Nicollet and Blue Earth County to express to these kids living in Mankato, North Mankato, that, hey, we have stuff for you too. Are there some kids that are involved? Certainly, but I think that there's still a ways to go in this area, just to bring out some of those passions. For example, my brother-in-law grew up on a farm, wants nothing to do with farming, but when he was in 4-H, he showed his ducks and the pigs, because it was kind of like your comfort, you have to show pigs. But his passion was in flying and aerospace, so they had an aerospace project that he did in 4-H, and then he went on to Ohio State, has an aeronautical engineering degree, and he is in the Air Force now. But he has roots in 4-H as well, and so it's important for us to remember and promote in terms of 4-H that we're not just teaching you about agriculture, but there's so many of those life skills, and just even starts to develop, like, okay, careers, what's out there, and opens your eyes to different areas that we're probably not aware of when we're that young otherwise.
Thank you. Thank you. Another question, please.
Thank you. Thanks to all four of you for an interesting conversation. conversation. My name is Lee Tesdall. I teach technical communication courses here on the Century Farm. First of all, about 4-H. I was scared to death at 10 years old to give my monthly reports, and I will say I did learn the meaning of the word withers when I was in 4-H. I had a dairy goat, and I had to measure the withers. Wouldn't have understood the meaning of that word otherwise. I'm interested to know what you're doing on your crop ground as far as reducing nitrate and phosphorus going into watersheds. On my farm, we're doing a lot of several different edge of field practices, and we've got buffer strips along the creek and so on. And we're finding with the wood chip bioreactor that we can actually reduce the nitrate on that one tile 53% with 4 years of data. So, you know, we're learning as we go. We know there are practices out there. What are you guys doing?
I can speak to that. So we farm in a very different area than Mankato. There's hardly any tile drainage in our area. On some of the land we farm by Melinda's family is tiled, but in our neck of the woods, in our township, I don't think there's any drainage tile. So we have totally different circumstances than what you guys have in Mankato, and that's why it has to be farm specific. So that those practices work on your farm, different practices are going to work on my farm. So we do a couple things. We carefully soil sample everything so we know how much nutrients to apply. We're not going to go nuts supplying nutrients that don't need to be there because it's expensive, and we don't want to see it get into the water either. Second thing, we've done a lot of nitrification inhibitors, nitrogen stabilizers on our farm, try to keep that nitrogen in the soil rather than evaporating into the air or leaching into the water. And beyond that, it's just, you know, grass waterways in our neck of the woods. We're a very hilly terrain on our farm, try to keep that water in the grass area so any nutrients that are left in there get filtered out. But you know, you do everything right, you know, you can still have wrong results. You do everything wrong, you can still have great results. And that's when we're dealing with nitrogen and nutrients in general. It's always hard to make blanket recommendations, you know, across the state, across the region. It's so farm specific. But beyond that, you know, the old concept of applying the right nutrient at the right place at the right time, I think goes a long way. We try to do a good job at that. Beyond some of those other things, we're reducing our tillage a lot. We've done some no-till farming. We've kind of gone away from it. Now we're getting back into no-till farming again. As you know, being younger, lesser resource farmers. Yes, I started farming with some of the advantages of having some land, but we were kind of in the position of having some outdated equipment too that wasn't capable of doing some of the things. But we've upgraded now. We have a corn planter that can plant corn without doing any tillage now, and so that goes a long way too as far as reducing soil loss. And if you reduce soil loss, you're going to reduce the amount of phosphorus going into the ground. It might not do as much for nitrogen, but at least help phosphorus and other nutrients from getting into the soil or water.
And I'll add to Glenn's point. So I can speak from a company perspective and what our customers do. At Environmental Tillage Systems, Glenn alluded to the right place, right time, right rate of fertilizer. We're actually a partner in a program called the 4 R's, and that is the 4 R's of nutrient stewardship are based around applying fertilizer at the right rate, the right time, using the right source, and getting it in the right place. And our equipment can help farmers do all of those things, apply at the right rate, time, source, and place. And so we're very involved with the Fertilizer Institute, who operates that program. And they actually have certification programs for agricultural retailers and cooperatives throughout the United States, and they're moving into Canada as well. So these retailers basically commit to following the 4 R's and helping their farmers follow the 4 R's and go through an auditing process every year to show, here's what we're doing to reduce the amount of nutrients lost, or to make sure that nutrients are being used at that right rate. And farmers use various technologies in order to accomplish that, and ours is one of them. There's an effort here in Minnesota to implement those things as well. I think there needs to be more education around that in Minnesota as well. Our company has partnered with the Minnesota Ag Water Resource Coalition And we're putting on an event for crop advisors and ag retailers this summer, actually at Farm America, where Gabby used to work, to help farmers and ag retailers better understand these practices and what they can do to have an impact. Because a lot of times, farmers aren't quite sure how to go about it, or they don't have the right resources at this time. But we feel like we can help them learn and grow by doing things like these field days that show them our equipment, show them different research around nutrient placement, and help them make decisions that can reduce that loss of soil and fertilizer.
Thank you. We're going to press and see if some of our students will ask questions, because you're an important part here today. I could do the teacher thing and come stand next to you and hand you the microphone.
I'm not a student, obviously. I have a question if I could.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Tom Cook. I serve as the Director of Organizational Development for a company, Alltech Feed Division. You might know us here in town as Hubbard. We're part of Ridley. We're a 16 feed companies around the globe. I was in Saskatoon this morning. Michael and I grew up on a dairy farm in Illinois. Dad and brother still milk 140 cows and farm acreage. Mom was the leader of one 4-H club. My dad was the leader of another. I was an FFA BOAG instructor for 3 years in Illinois, so kind of grew up in ag and really don't know any different, and I don't think I'd want to. My question is more from an agribusiness perspective. As young professionals, how do you view, and we've got ag producer, we've got some ag professionals, how do you view what agribusiness should be doing for young professionals? If you were sitting in the director's seat of agribusiness today, what would you be doing differently?
Great question.
I would say there are certain companies that have the resources to be able to bring young professionals together. When I worked for Pioneer, they had various programs that supported young professionals in agriculture and provided them with some education and networking. One of those programs that I know Pioneer still supports today is called New Century Farmer, and that's actually run through the National FFA organization. And young professionals in agriculture can apply to be in that program, and then it's actually hosted on-site by Pioneer. But I think there's an opportunity for other companies to get involved in things like that as well. Our company, just being kind of cutting edge in the equipment industry, attracts a lot of young professionals as far as customers, or young farmers as customers. They may not hold the checkbook on the farm, but they're the ones coming out of college and saying, hey, Dad or Grandpa, we should really look into strip tillage because I learned about nutrient loss in college and I learned about agronomy. This could really help us on our farm to, save our soil and help build organic matter, what have you. So we have a lot of opportunities to interact with young professionals in my business. And being in marketing, I find every way I can to help support them and to help them tell their story about how they transition their farm and their practices, help them network with other farmers. I don't know if there's specific programming. I don't have anything in mind, but maybe you do, Anna, from a computer perspective.
Not necessarily programming, but I would probably take a little bit different direction to the answer to the question too. I think from an agribusiness perspective, one thing that we do need to be doing better is getting the attention of students at a younger age. So like I said, in high school, I didn't even know that there were lenders that lent specifically to farmers. I knew there were bankers, but I didn't know that people made loan decisions. Like, that was just outside of my realm. I didn't need to apply for a loan when I was in high school. So I think some of it just starts at the high school level to get the thoughts going around career development and understanding what careers are out there that are in agriculture. And then even, bringing that perspective in through college. you know, internships are great, but that's only a very small portion of what's out there. And so you hear from your friends at college, like, oh, I interned with this company, I interned with this company. So those are the things that you hear about, and the idea is that you know exist. But I think there's so many careers that even today I don't even, like, unless I sit down and think about it, oh yeah, that is an agriculture, yep, that's part of that, you know, sector too. And I didn't have to have a degree in agriculture. It could have been communication or education, or but that you can attract. I think part of it's just attracting the talent earlier, and then to retain the talent. You know, like a lot of us, well, like my husband, for example, he had a career. He worked for Hubbard for a little while, and then he wanted to go home and farm. And there are a lot of individuals out there that that's their end goal, but they know that for, you know, 3, 4, or 5 years, or maybe longer, that they need to have a job at the farm before they are welcome to even think about coming back to the farming operation. So it's trying to maybe be a little bit flexible too in some of those work environments to say, how can I keep this high talent person that wants to go back to the farm as well? Because farming, especially right now, take from a lender, not very profitable. So to be able to support, you know, a role outside of the farm and have a farming operation is also beneficial for those individuals too. So that maybe takes it a little bit different than where you were thinking, but those were my thoughts when we talked about agribusiness and what should we be doing from a different perspective. And I think one more thing too is, when I was applying for jobs right out of college, it was hard to find somebody that would hire somebody with no experience. So when I was looking for jobs, it was, well, you need 3 to 5 years of experience in this. And, well, where am I going to get 3 to 5 years worth of experience if nobody will hire me straight out of college? I have a degree, I'm willing to work, but where's my first stepping stone? So I think one of those is providing a stepping stone into maybe a greater career.
I think from my perspective, I'll add, connecting these conversations. We know as a university, enrollment is our lifeblood in many ways, and we look at when students apply here and choose to go somewhere else, why is that? And we knew we were losing students to River Falls and South Dakota State, and you know, one of the many reasons why we're looking more into ag, food, and natural resources. That being said, our university is very similar to many other universities in our most popular major, usually in the top 3 every year, is undecided. And so how do we connect individuals like you with those undecided students to help them figure out their passion, their way forward? And that evolves over time, as each of you are examples of that. But and we know once a student chooses a major, and in particular if they choose a major by the end of their first year, they're more likely to stay and eventually graduate. And so looking for creative solutions to connect young professionals, a way that we can keep young professionals engaged and provide some of the needs and resources that Tom mentioned, along with how can we help to provide that future pipeline of ag talent, which we know is so desperately needed.
You know, one thing I would be in support of is hosting college students for a tour at our company. So we just gave a tour to some Riverland students the other day. Granted, they were in the crop production major, so they kind of know or precision agriculture. They knew, you know, that they wanted to be in agriculture, but it's not out of the question to arrange some tours or job shadows or speakers for those students that are undecided. And I think a lot of agriculture companies in this area would be in support of doing that in partnership with MSU to help students explore some of those different opportunities in agriculture, especially right here within southern Minnesota.
Excellent suggestion. Glenn, you have something to offer?
Yeah, I guess as from an agribusiness standpoint, I would say first and foremost, don't reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of good leadership programs out there for young producers. There's a lot of good educational opportunities within our universities and our tech schools. And sometimes I think you see it, especially in the cooperative side of things, they all got to have their young farmer leadership program. You know, every banking system, every farm credit system, every co-op, they all got their young farmer thing. They want to think claws into the young farmers because they're maybe the sons and daughters of some of their bigger customers, or they're the ones that'll be their bigger customers down the road, so they all want to do something. Well, gosh, there's only so many things young farmers can go to. We want to get out there, we want to meet other people, we want to socialize, we want to learn from each other, but there's good educational events already. So if you're looking at Hubbard Feeds All-Tech, sponsor one of those events, get on board with one of those, and time demand is huge. You got young families, can't get away from the farm because maybe you're taking more of the active day-to-day role, where the senior generation is taking more of the management role. Time demands on young farmers is significant, so don't reinvent the wheel. Look at what's already out there, support those programming opportunities. And on the education side of things, I'm going to use one example. At Northeast Iowa Community College, you have a John Deere Tech program. So students go there, they get certified to be a John Deere technician. Well, what if some different company who had, okay, we need students with these specific demands, and with these specific set of skills, we demand those for our business. You go to Minnesota State Mankato and say, we're company X, we need students that can do these 3-4 things, design a degree program, we'll kind of help recruit, we'll support your program, and we'll provide a home, a good job for those students when they graduate. That John Deere Tech program at Northeast Iowa Community College is something that comes to mind because they can have 100% job placement, provided they go through the program. There are John Deere dealerships all over the country that can hire those students with those skills. If you're in ag business, tell universities what they need and then follow through and hire those students after that those students are provided.
Thank you. Speaking of young leadership development, I yet await for a student question or maybe sharing something that you particularly liked about our panelists today. And being an advocate of young women, congratulations, you get the opportunity.
So I am Brittany Tichow. I actually grew up in Waseca, and I'm a sophomore here, majoring in elementary education. So my question is, as like a future teacher, what are ways we can talk to younger kids and maybe encourage agricultural career?
I can speak to that a little bit. This goes back to your question as well, is a program that I implemented while in my job at Farm America. We work closely with Junior Achievement to have a career exploration week. We went off their curriculum based on different activities in the classroom, and we brought it to Farm America and put kind of an ag twist on it. Caitlin was there, and many other ag producers, ag communications, ag marketing, really every spectrum of ag was represented. So as an employer, you can, let your employees go for a couple days. Their 8-hour day can be spent teaching kids about what they do every day. And they're still looking for people for this year. And so that is something that I thought was really cool. It opened the eyes to 7th and 8th graders throughout southern Minnesota. That was a week-long program. So I guess implementing, yes, there are career clusters, but making that career cluster of agriculture really known that it's really not just in a tractor all day, it's not farming all day, it's a wide variety. You can almost apply, anything to agriculture.
Minnesota also has Minnesota Ag in the Classroom, and that is something, I think they do come to MSU and talk to the education, like in your senior year, I believe. And so Minnesota Ag in the Classroom provides free resources to teachers, essentially. And their target is not ag teachers. It is elementary ed. It's general classroom. And they have a whole, now I'm losing the word, they have curriculum already prepared, and it tells you what standards it meets. It gives you the whole lesson plan so that you can implement it with your students. And it goes all the way down to kindergarten and through the high school level. And so there's already lesson plans out there for you to use and bring agriculture into your classroom. So look that up on the internet and bookmark it in your head. And hopefully, I'm almost positive they come to MSU as well. But that's through the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, has some individuals that help, Sue Knott, Carrie Seidel, and they're great. So use them as a resource, and really would love to see you bring that into your classroom when you get out there and teaching.
Do we have a question from maybe our students on that side of the room? I shouldn't say do we. Which one of you has the question?
Come up with a question together.
All right, I guess it's me. My name is Nick Hartung, and the four of us are from the mechanical engineering department here. We're all juniors, and I guess I don't have as much of a comment or a question as I do a comment. Just that what the university is trying to do right now, as far as bringing agriculture at least into the engineering field. The four of us are currently starting up a competition team that's sponsored by SAB, which is the American Society of Agricultural and Biological Engineers. So we're designing, it's essentially a small-scale tractor which we'll go and compete with and do a business presentation with, as if we're a design team working with John Deere or AGCO or anything like that. So, just a little comment.
That's really cool to know about, and if your team or your class is ever interested in visiting a local equipment manufacturer, we're right in Faribault, and we have a small engineering team. We have 2 engineers, a senior engineer and a design engineer, and so they do all of our work in being a small company. They have to do everything from R&D to troubleshooting, and so they have 2 design teams that are doing projects with them right now, one from NDSU and the other from ISU. So they're willing and able to work with students too on design projects. So you might be interested in touring some of the different agriculture-related equipment manufacturers or companies that are around this area as well.
Sorry. Yeah, that'd be very interesting. I interned with Giraffe Industries, which is out of St. Peter, and they make forestry equipment. So definitely something we'd like to get in touch with and see what's around the area. Sure.
We also have an engineering internship.
Yeah, we had a quarter scale team at UW River Falls that did the quarter scale pulling competition. That was always pretty neat stuff they come up with. Those guys worked hard at it. I didn't do it. I wasn't an ag engineering major, but they come up with really creative stuff. All hydraulic driven and all electric motors. You got to do different things. You get your base requirements, but I remember those guys spent a lot of time down in the engineering labs working on that. But when you do that, just remember your future employers are paying attention to that. They'll see how you guys present. They're the ones that are going to be judging you. They're the ones that are going to be seeing how you did your work and put together. And I know a lot of those guys went on to have real successful careers in agriculture equipment, all over the country. So it really leads to a lot of career choices. So you're doing it right. If I were to make any suggestion, talk to AGCO down in Jackson. They got a lot of top people down there building equipment every single day. They might be a sponsorship opportunity or whatever, or does he provide technical assistance too? I don't know how Jackson's about an hour, 2 hours away from here, but that'd be a place I'd check out. They've been building tractors down there for years, and I think it'd be a great resource for him.
Excellent. Well, I always want to be respectful of our time. So first off, please join me in giving a very big round of applause to our 4 panelists. As you can tell, they're very polished professionals that are very real but had much to offer to us today. I also would like to express a heartfelt appreciation to all of you who came today. As we advance our university's academic offerings, our research, our partnerships in agriculture, every audience that we engage will be a part of those conversations going forward. Again, let me remind you, our 10th and final colloquium will be coming up on April 23rd, dealing with hot topics in agriculture, as well as we have the event that I mentioned on April 19th at 7 p.m. where we're going to have the food science writer from the Star Tribune here, as well as in the Trapton Science Center. We had, earlier today we presented just a small token of our appreciation to our panelists, and even though they're alumni of multiple institutions, I anticipate they'll wear their MSU swag with pride. I would like to invite you, if you have additional conversations, questions you'd like to have. We have some light refreshments in the back of the room, and then we also have in room 256 right upstairs, we'll be having a reception from 3:30 to 4:30 with some desserts that maybe you can engage in some deeper conversations with our panelists. So thank you. I would also be remiss if I didn't thank Patrice Hunstad from our office, who takes care of all the details and all the logistics and coordinating PowerPoint and speakers and refreshments in rooms, and Patrice is a great part to the success. So Patrice, please accept our appreciation as well.